you for having sent me your questions. Hasina, the questions that are relevant to you here are: A, are you saying that we should or should we not collect religion data on human trafficking? And how will it help, or what problems will it cause? Secondly, that this is something that Rovina asked. Then we have Zia, Professor Khaja Ziauddin, who says that when we look at data on SCs and STs, then is that data strengthening the stereotypes? Is it causing more misinterpretation than helping us out with what it ought to be doing? And Farida Hussain on whether we have specific data on important issues like financial inclusion. Do we know what kind of how many Muslim women would be financially included? So very specific questions.
All right. So I think let me just start from the question about whether religion should be included in the way we find data. After 32 years of work with the issue of migration and human trafficking, I say no. I will not agree that religion should determine migration and the issue of vulnerability. It has to be centric to human being overall. And that is somewhere I stand for. Because at the end of the day, it's all women, children, and the most vulnerable that faces. So the moment we bring religion into it, then we make them into compartments. And the moment we have into compartments, then the overall impact that we need. So it's just like how I think Osama was just mentioning right now, how do we build the narrative in the correct way? For me, building narrative in the correct way is ensuring that India, who signed the Palermo Protocol, gives all the universal rights to everybody who is vulnerable to human trafficking. And it's just not that human trafficking is affecting only in the northeast of India, it's the whole country, the whole Southeast Asia. And I think with post COVID, we will have more and more who are going to be vulnerable for employment issues and the highest of it. Number two, when you're talking about the economic part of it, even in the economic, for us, since we work with more than 30,000 weavers in the northeast of India, as a response to unsafe migration, creating sustainable livelihood and market access, we still took away, the ST and SC issues. We never brought ST and SC into the way we demarcate. I know that that is a debate, but when we earlier collected in our data the ST and SC, then we realized that are we trying to make them more vulnerable? Is a question of how we interpret. Are we going to make them still the people who will say like, oh, you are an ST category, so you're very backward, and you'll continue to be backward? The word tribal in the Northeast is not acceptable because everybody call themselves indigenous. So these are debatable words. So how do we interpret all of it? ST is more on tribal context and indigenous is not tribal context, right? So I'm giving you a region specific, which is so highly, we have minorities of different tribes. So the moment we bring in this ST and SC, I think way down as we go forward, are we going to still marginalize them that you are an ST and you remain to be backward? But we have so many ST who move forward. Are we going to make them go into a level that economic is a reason not for ST and SC? It's a question of, from where you come from, the situation you come from, the region of economic that is making you vulnerable, and it depends on which cactus. So Eastern Himalayan is, the ecology, if ecology gets affected, the economic gets affected. And for us, it's restoring that ecology at the moment through agroforestry and food plantation is reviving the strength of economic so that both men and women are able to access economics so they become less vulnerable. So it's a way of how you build the narrative. For us, that's how we have built the narrative in 32 years.
Thanks so much. Thanks. Important to note that, and the reason for this kind of a diversity Students are listening carefully to the nuances that differentiate the indigenous versus the tribal. We use things so loosely, and the language is used so interchangeably otherwise. Afroz, the questions to you. One question, because you are the active academic in this group. Professor Kundu now is calling himself a retired professor. So, so the question to you is that what is the data of women in research, and particularly in Muslim women? Is there do we know that number? Do we need to improve that number? How do we improve that number? The second question is that so this is Dr. Arifuddin who was asking you this question on the numbers. Dr. Mohammad Ghaus, one of our foremost researchers working on these issues here, his question is that are we looking at a society that is glorifying holy violence? He's calling it holy violence, and I'm sure you understand what it means. You kill for the sake of God, and what is going to happen to you after you die. So two separate questions. One, a pure question on your students. You get to see a large number of women and Muslim women. And secondly, are we glorifying this kind of violence?
Uh, the first question is that from where to get data on Muslim women
In research, yeah.
research. I personally feel because I have identified agencies which are having data. The problem is not of having data. I'm telling you that data are available. Problem is that somebody is holding monopoly over it. So are we able to access that data? For example, that UNDP publishes a report, and that UNDP is having gender connotations as well. OECD is having reports. Most of the UN allied agencies are having data. There are so many surveys across the world happening by national and international agencies. They are having data. There are local researchers conducting researches in the individual departments across the universities for around 500 relevant universities in India itself. There are research centers who are individually conducting the researches on the women. Are we able to collaborate? The problem is that how to collaborate, how to coordinate, and how to interlink those available data. Now, the point is that the data collection, I told you that is now everybody is doing it. That problem relies with the cost of cleaning the existing data, the cost of curating, standardizing, and integrating those data to suit our research framework. Do we have the resources? Similarly, that in the real life situation, the quality of data is being hugely debated. Whether those data are actually relevant to the research questions we have formulated at our hand. The problem is that the problem is not with the data, but in the real-time world, data are noisy, data are inconsistent, and data exhibit missing values. Problem with us that do we have those ability, resources to curate, standardize those data to suit our questions on women? I personally found that on the electoral behavior of the women, we have a lot of data. We have that is on health issues. Every hospital nowadays are collecting data on the women health. Go to the, because they are maintaining database, they have a medical history, and those medical health history is helping the genetics scientists to improve on their researches. They are collecting data. That pharmaceutical industries are collecting data. Similarly, that electoral that is management agencies are having data on your personal behavior, that how a woman behave on social media platform. There are huge number of data available. And there are techniques if you want to have on your own, you just indulge into web scraping and API techniques. If you know those techniques, you can have access, open access resources and make use of it. There are open access programming program like Python and R, and there are other languages they can do, and you can have your own data. So problem is not with the data. How to make use of data, how to access that data, how to just go with the accuracy, timeliness of those data. That is the problem. You must have a proper framework in your mind and go and find data, invest time, bring resources, get funds, and there are huge funding agencies as well involved here. So I'm working at the moment on 2,000 crore projects to analyze data on some of the issues which I cannot reveal at the moment. But fund is not an issue at all.
Afroz, the question on, are you seeing a lot of women in data, working on data, working on research?
Women, data on women? Or
No. Do you see a lot of your students, your researchers? Are they men or are they women? Are you seeing larger numbers of women working with you who are interested in working on data in research?
Unless the data is classified, you don't know.
Yeah. You know that, no, I don't go with that. Most of the finest empirical social scientists I see nowadays are women. Finest social scientists, their finest data analysts are the women. The best campaign managers are women. They are the, I don't know that, they are gifted brain. They are gifted brain. No.
Fair enough. I will get to Professor Kundu. Professor Kundu, the questions that Ejaz is asking, Shoma, can I get that again? That Ejaz is asking, and that Adnan Jamil asks, and Khalid, the data, and Shoma, who's asking, the questions that they're asking is there a representativeness to data that is collected over social media? Do we have data that is real time, that is updated, and not just survey data? And do we and what do we, and the original question on studying particular categories, what do you say to doing that kind of research, and why have you done so much of that?
I take your original question again. I think Hasina ji was also trying to answer that before about a decade and a half, I was asked to do a project for European Union. And the data they asked from me is that please tell us how many people will migrate from South Asia to Europe.
Yeah.
How many of them will be single male and single woman? And how many Muslims will migrate from the Asian countries? I could see the seeds of Islamophobia built into the project itself, because they were directly asking me to tell me how many migrants in what age group, single, and how many Muslims. Now the question is, I'm really not able to answer this question as yet. I would like to ask you to tell me, should we really collect data on employment, consumption expenditure, poverty, health, education, access to drinking water, sanitation, location, the street length by religion? I was chairing a committee in National Sample Survey Organization in the 2005. Suddenly I got a circular as a chairman that please include religion also in the classification, which we had not done for drinking water and sanitation. So I was surprised. I asked these members, since I was chairing the advisory committee and the government, we thought that maybe that was the first phase of the BJP government. And we discussed it and we said, sorry, we will not include it. Because water supply, sanitation, access to traffic, etc. is a basic right and we would not include. And we could say that, sir, we will not do it. But believe me, after 10, 15 years, many of my Muslim friends said that, look, this data doesn't have the religious background. We should get that data. I would really like to know whether we should have done that, because at that time they wanted to know where is the location of the Hindus and the Muslims, what is the street length. That data can be used for really sending your military forces or discriminate on the basis of the religion, drinking water and sanitation. So I was not really very sure that I did a great job by resisting the pressure from the government not to include religion in this category. I would like to tell you, before a week and a half, I was in Bangalore. It was Empower India Foundation. And I think this was their annual meeting. 99% of the audience were Muslims. So I spoke there, and it was in the media. A good leftist comrade friend of mine wrote me a nasty letter saying that the Muslim population, the problem is not with them. The problem is with the Hindu population. You don't go to the Hindu functions and tell them what you have said there. You should really address the Hindu population because the problem lies there. I thought he was right. But I would like to know, Amir bhai, I have never been asked by Vishwa Hindu Parishad to come and give a lecture. What do I do? I just don't know how a dear friend of mine, I don't want to name him, is a very close friend of mine. He was a member of Planning Commission, professor, a Muslim professor. He tells me, Amitabh, have you done a great service? There was a committee which was actually headed by Amir. I was only signing that. This is post-Sachar evaluation committee. And they said, look, you have put a lot of statistics. Has it really helped the Muslim community? Or has it helped you in attending so many seminars and conferences and go to the media? He said, Sachar committee has divided the country. And is a very, concerned Muslim professor. He said, why I'm talking about one or two friends of mine, Congress senior member, when I went for that Eid celebration, he said, biggest mistake that Congress has done is to put the statistics on Muslim population in the public domain. It has destroyed Congress. This is exactly, he said, that Congress has been marginalized partly because of the Sachar committee, because this has been identified with this. And has it really helped? This is a question I ask myself. A friend of mine in JNU often tells me that you play to the galleries. I said, look, I say the same thing everywhere. But if I don't get the audience, this is what I was asking my friend S.K. Das, who wrote to me saying that why are you talking to Muslims? Problems is not with them. The problem is in the Hindu community. I agreed there, but how do we address it? And I think, Osama, you made a brilliant point. Is the data helping us? What you said is, it's not the data, it's a narrative that you build on the basis of the data. You build all these statistics, and I looked at the impact of pandemic on the Hindus, Muslims, OBCs, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe population. You know that maximum increase in the unemployment rate was for Muslims in the rural areas. And this comes out of the data. But if you bring that in, does it help the Muslim community or does it help in polarization? I'm not very sure about it. That's why I'm very scared that when I do something, am I doing it just for publicity? And one media person asked me bluntly, he said that you always say you chaired this committee and then you said that the government didn't, implement it. And government won't implement it. So why do you accept these meetings, attending the meetings or being a member of these committees, which is fair? So I am certainly asking you to tell whether if we really want to change this country, I'm not a missionary. I don't work for A, B, or C community. I was looking at inequality. I was looking at regional disparity. I was looking at social inequality. I was so disturbed to find out that the gender inequality is the severest. And in our India discrimination report, this will come out, the gender inequality. And second most important and dangerous thing is the Hindu-Muslim divide. And that is going up significantly. I'm not a missionary. Again, I'm saying that I don't come and work for A, B, and C and saying that I have concern from my childhood. I've never had that. But I'm disturbed about the inequalities across social groups, which is extremely dangerous for this federal structure. Asian Development Bank has predicted that 21st century belongs to India, provided These regional and social inequalities addressed. I'm concerned about that. So my request, therefore, is that we should, I do believe that narrative is important. How do you get the right kind of a narrative? I do all my research on discrimination, bring out a report, and you said one day somebody writes a WhatsApp message and the whole politics of the country has changed.
And now the movie also says that you can kill the future person.
No, I'm simply saying that if research and data does not help in bringing right kind of politics in the country, we should decide what should we work for. Because as a researcher, I have not yet picked up a stone and started throwing. I only do research, and now I'm told that research is useless. Research is not helping policy. On the other hand, it is helping in polarization. You are really helping the other side. If that is the case, I feel so, extremely anguished. And Amir bhai, I would like to share you one thing I'm tired of hearing is this retired professor. Amir bhai, this is very unfriendly statement. I want to be active. I'm associated with 5 organizations right now, and all the 5 organizations have told me that if you write on urban development, use your association with our institute, but if you write on discrimination, you write retired professor.
From one retired professor to another, I know what it feels like. But we now end this panel. So, Osama, you have a couple of questions that you will answer later. Sumaira's question on, so should we, how do we save ourselves from this entire onslaught of artificial intelligence, big data, social media? Should we just, can we get off the grid, as she puts it? And Imtiaz Alam's, which is how effective is the data that is being collected through social media? But you will answer that when you do your session. We will now get into the next, and in that next session, we'll start with Sangam Mitra and then Professor Farida Siddiqui. But Anjana, so on behalf of all of you, may I thank this really wonderful panel for having started us off on the right path, telling us where the fault lines are, कहाँ हमें जोर देना है, कहाँ खतरे हैं, और कहाँ हमारी जरूरत ज्यादा है. So आप सब लोगों का बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया भाई, and welcome to the workshop again or to this conference again. May I now get Anjana back?